of you to this timely panel about Turkey's ongoing military operation in the Syrian northeast. Today we are going to discuss Operation Spring in terms of Turkey's objective, military and political objective, and we are going to discuss also the National Army's perspective towards the operation, ongoing operation. We have two distinguished speakers from left to the right, my left to the left. We have Yusuf Hammada, a spokesman of Syrian National Army. We have also Hassan Hammada, Syrian Interim Government Deputy Defense Minister. And last speaker will be Mustafa Sejjari. Sejjari is political office, a member of Syrian National Army. First of all, I'm going to start with Mr. Yusuf Hammada to talk about the operational dynamics, operational dimension of Turkey's ongoing military operation in Syrian northeast. So we have 15 minutes to listen your thoughts and your perspective about the ongoing military operation, and then I'm going to give the floors to you to take your questions about the presentations. Thank you so much.
May peace be upon you. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for the head of this panel and for the audience who came to attend this panel to talk about our perspective about operation. Last Thursday, on the 10th of October, the operation Peace Spring started in coordination between the Turkish Army and the Syrian National Army. It wasn't a surprise thing because it was before it there were many preparations for many months before that operation, and before the operation there was a huge announcement for the unification for the Free Syrian Army with the help of Turkey, that all the factions were united in one military institution which is composed of 7 corps, and they called the SNA or the Syrian National Army. Before the operation also, there was a huge journey of Turkish diplomacy in order to avoid for the region the war and to create a safe zone for the region in coordination with the United States. But unfortunately, because of the YPG arrogance, which is led by the PKK, because they insisted on their separatist project and their refusal for the withdrawal, this allowed us or forced us to think about the military options, because this group, they have a huge history of criminality. They have displaced many civilians, Arabs, Kurds, Assyrians, Syriacs, and others. Those who are against their projects and policies, and also they have evoked the ethnic angers, and also committed many crimes among the indigenous people, especially in 2013 and 2014. And also they have forced the children to join their military ranks. And also their behavior was similar to ISIS or Daesh behavior. There is a report from the Syrian Network for Human Rights that was issued since September. Between 2012 until 2019, they have arrested more than 2,900 children and women, and all of them are under detention by the YPG. And 1,800 of them, including about 72 children, they were forced to disappear. And this is a violation for the international law and international agreements about human rights, because the international law says that forced disappearance is prohibited in conflicts, military conflicts. and also the criminal international law, and according to the laws that was issued by the ICC, that all the measures of forced disappearance is a crime against humanity. At the same time, the Euro Mediterranean Center issued a report in last June. They said in that report that the YPG is committing crimes east of the Euphrates, and also that observatory said that many civilians are suffering in Raqqa and other regions after the collapse of Daesh and after the YPG took control of the eastern parts of Syria. And also in that report, they said they talked about the violations and the most dangerous thing, which is the forced or the compulsory military service, especially for the children who are under 18 years old, to join the ranks of these forces and also to join the fight against Daesh. And these conscripted children, they are fighting actually with us now, and these are violations, and there are pictures and there are links for their YouTube violations. And in that report also, that SDF, they are committing extrajudicial killing according to the leaked videos from mobile phones for YPG fighters. And also in that report, they have documented for the violation for YPG for the ethnic cleansing for the regions and the villages. This demographic changes, all of them are documented, and we have also a document for all the villages in Hasaka province. In Hasaka province, we have in total, the villages are 1,718 villages. The number of Arabs are, the Arab villages are 1,200, which is 68%. While the Kurdish villages, sorry, he's speaking so fast, so I couldn't catch with some numbers. So if he can repeat the figures, it would be very good. أستاذي ممكن نعيد الأرقام مشان نلحق شوي شوي. The number of Arab villages, they are 1,168, and they are 68% of the villages. The number of Kurdish villages is 4,453, which is 38%. The total of Syrian and Syriac, they are 53, and they are about 5%. And the mixed villages, they are 48 villages. The number of the mixed villages between Arabs and Assyrians, they are 16 villages. The number of the mixed villages, Assyriac and Kurdish people, they are 18 villages. So this tells you that everyone knows that the PKK separatist project is aiming at to secede from Syria, to create their own state or their own identity in order to achieve their foreign agenda. For the Kurdish people, so the Kurdish people are located in Qamishli, in Ain al-Arab, and Malikiya, and they are actually separated areas or cities, and so they don't have one indigenous region for Kurdish people, so they are violating the rights of other ethnicities in that region. And according to that report also, the YPG used 24 schools for their military purposes, and also other schools for as storehouses, and also they consecrated 313 children. So 40% of these children who are fighting with YPG are girls, and most of them are under 15 years old. And we have seen them in Afrin, how they forced them to death actually in Afrin. According to these violations, these terrorist groups, they are trying to create a separatist projects that will threaten Turkey and Syria at the same time. There is no need to talk about their criminal records. What the PKK did to Turkey in history, and you know very well that when the PKK was pursued in Turkey, most of their leaders, they have escaped to Syria, and the previous regime and Hafez al-Assad regime welcomed them and created camps for them in Lebanon and Syria. And these later leaders are now in the beginning of the Syrian revolution. They took control of the eastern region, and they have seized actually or stolen the Kurdish revolution, and headed by with the killing of Mish'al Tumu, who was representing the nationalist or the national Kurdish people in that region. And so the leaders of PYD or YPG, they came from Kandil mountains, they came to Syria, and they worked on imposing their terror policies in order to create a momentum among the Kurdish young people by the compulsory military service and force them into unjust battles that will lead to the separation from Syria. With the common interest between us and our Turkish brothers, we have agreed on this a few months ago, and we have prepared for this operation, and we have enhanced the powers or the performance of our fighters according to many exercises and drills, and we have focused on the protection of civilians and their properties, and to avoid any sectarian or ethnic logos that will affect the ethnic mixture or textile that we have in northern Syria. And this was in the declaration of the SNA that it is a national army that is aimed to end the terror in Syria, starting with the terrorism of regime and coming to Daesh terrorism, and after that the YPG terrorism or PKK terrorism in northeastern Syria. And also in the declaration or in this operation, we have focused on the avoidance of any crimes against the civilians, and this reflected that this army is abided to the international laws in order to take care about the ethnic minorities. In our corps and our camps, we made exercises. After opening the office for the moral or guidance, we have added a curriculum for our fighters. We have told our fighters or taught our fighters about the international law, treaties, and how to treat with the prisoners of war and other types that are related to human rights in the battlefield. And also the SNA is abided to the treaty that is against the annihilation for the human species, and also the international agreement about the social and economic and cultural rights. All of them are under the international law. We have reports that were prepared by the international organizations. They have proven that PKK is aligned with Iran with the smuggling of the archaeological antiques from Syria that have taken them out of the region. And also, you know very well, the PKK is linked with the regime and Iran in the investment of and selling of oil in eastern Syria. So 80% of the oil in eastern Syria is controlled by PKK, and they are selling them to the regime and to Iran, and through crossings that are all registered with us. And also the treaty that is talking about any discrimination based on ethnicities or religion or sects, and also the treaties that were adopted by the international community that will care about the Syrian community, the coexistence among the Syrian community members, and also the rights of children. You know very well that the special envoy for the United Nations, And at that time, we mentioned in Twitter, we told the UN because their representative talked with SDF spokesperson, and we condemned what the UN did with that spokesperson, because the UN knows very well that children were conscripted or taken to the military service in their region. And also we will take care about the ethnic and cultural differences in that region. And the people who are from ethnic and sectarian minorities, they have the right to protect their cultures and communities, and to practice their own religions, and to use their own languages without any interference from the Syrian National Army. And this was included in the declaration of our army, that will protect all the Syrians with all their affiliations. So religion is for God, and the country is for all of us. And also the SNA focused about the liberation of the Syrian land from the PKK, and the right of the Turkish army to defend its borders and to protect its national security. And this was represented by Geneva Treaty, how to deal with the prisoners of war, and this was included actually in our declaration. And if there were some mistakes from the SNA, we will pursue them, and they are individual mistakes. And based on this, we have announced this, the defense minister, Brigadier Salim Idris, announced that there will be a committee from the military judiciary and the military police, and headed with Hassan Hamada, the deputy, the defense minister deputy, that will investigate all the cases of violations, and we have circulated their numbers among the brigades in order to follow up any violation that might be committed. So compared to Olive Branch operation in Afrin, and here I thank our Turkish brothers for all the military equipment that they have provided to us, led with the Turkish, with the military expertise that they have given to us in our camps, in our exercises, and enhance the levels of the performance of our fighters. And now our fighters, they are between 18 to 24 years old. So in the beginning of the revolution, they were children, but day by day, there were a few amount of experience, military experience, but now they are all of them in one military institution, and with the help of our Turkish expertise, they have helped us to enhance their performance. In that the region, there was a surgery that we have done in Afrin, that we have tackled and destroyed and got rid of the terror group in that region. And you can, when you look at this operation, you can think about other interventions by Iran, other countries that have destroyed different cities. And here we can answer the question why we have chosen our Turkish ally. We have actually seen that seen what happened in other parts in Syria, and if we look at what Turkey has done in Euphrates Shield region and Olive Branch region, there is no way to compare between them. So we affirm again that is our right with our Turkish ally to work and operate on the Syrian land in order to apply the political solution, in order to bring back voluntarily all the refugees and displaced people. And you have seen this in Olive Branch region. We have built the infrastructure, we have built the schools, and many IDPs got back to their villages and regions, and we have prepared these cities and villages to be inhabitable by the people who can come back. But if you look now at Hama countryside that was destroyed by the regime after the occupation by the regime army, now the people can't return to their villages. And now we have heard the international community calling for the political solution for Syria. Yes, we are the political solution, but we need a political solution that will enable all people to get back to their homes safely. And in this regard, we remind you about a report that was issued by the UN Office for International Conflicts. And it checked many satellite images, and it showed that more than 35,000 homes in Aleppo were destroyed, compared to Ghouta, which is 34,000 homes were destroyed. And that in that report, that the infrastructure that were destroyed in Afrin, just 194 buildings were destroyed, and most of them, they were loaded with mines that were by the YPG, and they have used them as storehouses for their ammunition. And now Afrin region is witnessing the return of tens of thousands of Syrians, and many schools and universities are opening in that area, and the civil life is returning back, and it's only violated by a few sleeper cells that are making explosions in some of the villages and the towns. And we are hitting now this strategic depth of that group, the YPG, in order to end such kind of terrorism. And now we have targeted the strategic and the supply lines for that group, and our groups that we have liberated Tel Abyad, and more than 47 villages and farms were liberated. Compared, if we look at these advances, there were many protests in the Syrian north who took to the streets welcoming to the peace spring operation. And at the time, we unfortunately received the condemnation from some states and foreign countries who condemned that operation. Some of these opposing states or countries, they were silent regarding the violations that were committed by the Iranians or the Russians or the YPG that they have committed in Syria. In this regard, we tell the audience and the representatives for all countries, they should align to the interests of the Syrian people and make pressure to these countries in order to support that operation that will enable thousands and thousands of these refugees who left their areas in Eastern Euphrates. And yesterday you have seen the videos with the fighters who returned to their city Tel Abyad after leaving it 5 years later. I will mention quickly about the Arab League and their condemnation about it. I don't know how they call themselves, the Arab League, and they are defending a terror group inside Syria, and in all their declarations they are calling for removing the Arab name or term from Syria. It's really a paradox from the Arab League how they supported a terror group that is against Arabs. Thank you very much.
شكرا لك. المتحدث التالي سيكون هو السيد حسن حمادة، وهو نائب وزير الدفاع في الحكومة السورية المؤقتة. تفضل، الكلمة لك. تفضل أستاذ. Hello everyone. In fact, I'd like to start with extending my thanks to SETA Center for their invitation, and also to thank all the attendees here for making the time to listen to us. I'd like to talk about the Syrian National Army. What is it? I will mention the stages of its development until it was formed recently. The Syrian National Army was formed in 2017 by the Syrian Interim government, the previous administration in the government. It was following a series of meetings between Syrian armed groups, the moderate factions that are supported by the friend states of Syria and who are also approved by the Pentagon. 23 factions were convened, and I will talk about all of these developments till the beginning of this month. Earlier this month, when we had this merge between the National Front and the Liberation Front and the National Army. A series of meetings was conducted for consultations over a couple of months during 2017 and 2018, and the Syrian National Army was announced, and it's affiliated by the Ministry of Defense and the Syrian Interim government. The Syrian National Army is composed of 3 corps. Each of them includes several brigades. The aim of this army, or the objective behind formation of the National Army, is to ensure there is an organizational structure for this military that could start or stem its work from north of Syria. It is the core for the army in Syria. It started its work when it liberated the area between Jarablos Tel Azaz. It's the border area near Bab Salame with Turkey, and they reached Al Bab city inside Syria. Following its formation in 2017, towards the end of the year, they participated in Olive Branch operation, where they liberated Afrin and Genderes areas. Those 2 areas were liberated from the PKK separatist forces. The achievements that has been made following Olive Branch operation led to enhanced structural administration, where we had the police and the moral guidance unit within the army as well. These developments are within the army, including a judicial unit as well, led to minimizing the individual violations that took place during the operation in Afrin. These were not systematic violations, they were individual ones, and with the development of the administration and the structure of the army led to minimizing these violations and to hold those who committed them accountable. Also, they are working on increasing the awareness of the fighters within the Syrian National Army and to support them politically and morally as well. The second measure took place following the new administration in the Syrian Interim government, when Mr. Salim Idris, who is from military background, was appointed as Minister of Defense, in addition to the formation of other ministries as well. This measure came as a result of the efforts it was the result of efforts over 8 months, and the merger took place between the Syrian National Army and the Liberation Front, which is also composed of several moderate armed groups who are supported by the friend states and known as MOM Operation Room. The merger took place on October 4th, and the declaration was made available to you all. It was announced by Mr. Abdurrahman Mustafa, Prime Minister of the Syrian Interim government. The total number of fighters is now around 80,000 fighters. The aim or the objective of this army now after this merger is to enhance its organizational structure until we have a proper military structure or institution. This is the context in general. However, I'd like to talk about the priorities of the Syrian interim government regarding the Ministry of Defense. The priorities are further development on the organizational and structural level, and to ensure stability in liberated areas, whether in areas where controlled by the Liberation Front previously, or in Afrin and Azaz and other areas. And also to continue the fight against terrorists in both areas. Thank you. شكرا لك. متحدثنا الأخير هو مصطفى ساجري، وهو عضو من الجيش الوطني السوري. تفضل. Thank you so much. My colleagues provided you with a comprehensive briefing about the purpose of our meeting today, which is to talk about Peace Spring operation, and talked about the context and the motivations that led to this operation, to its launch. However, I'd like to note some additional points. I'll talk about the interests of the Syrians in this operation. First of all, the Syrian National Army is participating in this operation based on the Syrians' interest to protect the sovereignty and unity of the Syrian territory, and to eliminate all terrorist elements, the foreign ones specifically, who entered Syria and are aiming to actually establish a separate area known as Syrian Kurdistan. And it's unlike what some groups are trying to say about what's happening in Syria as a civil war. It's not the case. It is actually a war against some jihadi groups known as ISIS. And now we have the Syrian National Army taking lead in this fight, and before that it was the Syrian Free Army or the Free Syrian Army, FSL. It was known for doing this for years. They are opposing any non-Syrian agendas inside Syria. And as you can see or follow in the media, those separatist forces or groups, they are not talking about Syria as a whole. They are talking only about the eastern part of Syria. They are talking about Kurdistan in the north, Kurdistan in the east, etc. They are this is enough an evidence that they are actually trying to form a separatist. They are a separatist movement, and they are trying to separate themselves from Syria. If they are truly a component of the Syrian society or community, or if they are waiting till the situation in Syria is more stable and all components of the Syrian people are capable of discussing things together and going to the polls and to the elections, and after we get rid of Bashar al-Assad, who's the first and largest supporter of the terrorism in the area, then each component will have the chance to discuss what they want. However, the majority of the Syrian people who are Arabs and the actual Kurds who are part of the Syrian people won't choose that. However, some of these Kurds, and I'm stressing that not all of them, part of them, they are now an umbrella for terrorist groups who came from Kandil, who are not actually Syrians. They don't hold the national, even the Syrian nationality. We are talking about Iraqis and Iranians who are inside Syria and who are not Syrians, but they are terrorists and under the umbrella of the Kurds. I attended some of the negotiations with the it was under the supervision or the auspices of the Americans in 2016. However, I noted during those negotiations that they don't have the ability to make any decisions. They don't have that right. They were always leaving the meeting rooms to go back to their leaders in Kandil and to seek or to ask them for directions, and then they will get back to us. So the groups that are inside Syria, they are controlled by foreign, the Kurdish groups inside Syria are controlled by foreign powers. And also I'd like to note that we have the media, including some Arab medias, that are spreading some propaganda that is dangerous for the safety of Syria, the sovereignty of Syria, the stability in Syria. They are supporting, they did not say a word about Iran or Russia in Syria. The one you can see here in this picture, he's a leader in SDF, Syrian Democratic Forces. He's non-Syrian and he's fighting inside Syria. Also this picture that was in Raqqa, it was after they destroyed Raqqa under the pretext of fighting terrorism, and it is very, you could see clearly the difference between the fight against terrorism by the US-led coalition and the destruction that it was caused because of it, and the fight against terrorism by the Free Syrian Army. You can see clearly how we do not destroy the infrastructure, we do not conduct any or force any demographic changes in the area, whereas what happened in northeast Syria is a systematic displacement of large number of local people or local residents. These are the fighters who are fighting in SDF forces, and you can have it if you want. I can give you further details about them, or you can get a copy of these photos later. All of them are foreigners. They are not Syrians, but they are fighting among SDF forces. This is the truth that everyone is, or many people are trying to hide. This is the map that they are trying to reach the Kurdistan, the Syrian Kurdistan. They are talking about the Syrian part, Syrian territory, that they'd like to have it as part of their Kurdistan. We have repeatedly been trying to say something to the Americans, and I'd like to clear what I'd like to say that, or stress that we part of Al-Mu'tasim group, we are part of the moderate factions. We fought against ISIS for 2 years and were supported by the Americans, so we've been verified as a moderate group. Our fighters always ask us this question: why did we previously receive the support? Until now, the US-led coalition cannot say or accuse us of any violations. We have never been associated with any terrorist groups. We've never smuggled our arms or weapons to other groups. However, we still they don't have anything against us to distort our reputation. Whereas to other groups are supported with in large numbers to other separatist groups. And I guess everyone knows the answer. What happened in Syria is actually an attempt to support these foreign separatist groups to have their or to reach their end game. That's why the Syrian National Army is actually working with the support of our Turkish brothers to preserve the interests of Syria. We don't have a problem with that. We said this before and we'll say it again. Who'd like to support us to serve our own interests, they are welcome. Those who would like to collaborate with us to fight ISIS and other terrorist groups we are ready to collaborate. However, the majority of the countries are actually, to the contrary, are using terrorist groups to serve their own ends and interests inside Syria. And all of these groups, the other separatist groups, they are just a compass. They don't have a decision. I won't take any longer because my colleagues explained in details. Now I'll finish here and I'll leave this floor for questions if you have any. شكرا لك وشكرا لكافة المتحدثين. بداية سأجمع 3 أسئلة. رجاء بداية عرفوا بأنفسكم.
Question as much as possible.
شكرا جزيلا.
Just a minute.
اسمي مصعب يوسف. أنا
مصعب يوسف from TRT Arabic. Thank you, dear speakers. I have 2 questions. The first one is related to the field situation, and the second one is what's going to happen after this operation. The first question, I'll address it to Mr. Hassan, since he is the deputy minister in the Syrian Interim government. What will happen after Operation Peace Spring, after the liberation for this area from terrorist groups, after the liberation from SDF? What will we have next? Do you have a strategic plan for how to ensure the local administration? In previously in Jarablus and Al-Bab, there was a development of local administration structure. The second question is to Mr. Yusuf. There has been talked about entering Manbij and withdrawal of US forces from that area. What would you expect in the near future for Manbij, Ain al-Arab, or the areas around that? Especially that there are talks about the Syrian regime, Assad regime, is deploying its forces in the vicinity of the areas, and that there are some agreements between the Syrian regime and this terrorist group. Thank you. مرحبا، أنا من ميدل إيست آي. رأيت التقارير الأخيرة عن
here in Halef, and everybody who closely follows the situation on the ground says that Ahrar al-Sharqiya is responsible for her death. And is it your assessment that the forces responsible to you committed this act, that she was killed and her body was abused, according to Raqqa is being slaughtered, an independent monitoring group? And secondly, if it is your assessment, what is the state of your investigation regarding this act? Thank you.
There is also a question.
Hi, I am Bekir Özbek from TRT Haber. Mr. Yusuf Hammut, you talked about the preservation of cultural rights of Kurds and all other minorities. What exactly do you mean by this preservation of cultural rights? What exactly do you give as cultural rights to the Kurds in a future Syria? Which kind of cultural rights will they have? For instance, education in their own languages, or what kind of cultural rights will they have?
Okay.
Different from the Assad regime gave to them.
Okay. So we can start with you.
السؤال الأخير. تمام. أولاً
I mentioned the cultural rights, and here we have and extended reports about the relationship between the PYD and the Iranian authorities, the smuggling of archaeological antiques. The PKK started to cooperate through its leaders to cooperate with a mafia network in Iran to dig for archaeological antiques in eastern Syria. All of these antiques they were moved to Iran through smuggling routes and coordinated with SDF or YPG leadership. This was the first danger that was exposed to the cultural and the social fabric in Syria. That project is aimed to remove all the aspects of that region. And you know the Euphrates region is a very ancient region, and there are many archaeological sites in that region. So with that movement, the YPG, they are trying to take out these antiques and also to claim that this area is their own. Regarding the Kurdish language, in Syria, we look for a united Syria. And here I have a question. What is learning Kurdish language in schools? What is the benefit of it? Is it an international language or not? We know very well that if countries are imposing foreign languages in their curriculum, this means that they are looking for the international atmosphere. In our schools, we have studied French, English, and Arabic. They are used in the international arena, and this can bring economic and financial benefits and can enhance our relationship with other countries. What is the benefit of a second language? For example, yes, they have their own right that they can get subjects in Kurdish language, but to impose the Kurdish language on all the children of Syria to be in curriculum, this is something, it's unacceptable actually, and it's not acceptable in logic actually. They have the right to celebrate in their cultural in Nowruz, for example, and we have participated in these participations, and until 2005 I used to participate in Nowruz celebrations until 2005. I have many friends in Afrin. They have their own history, they have their own customs and traditions, and they have their own social life, and they can protect it, and we can add these in subjects as additional subjects in curriculum. But to impose or to force this on a united country, you can use the Arabic language, and you can use all other international languages that will be useful on the international usage. Thank you. Thank you for your question. We have made the preparations for that operation militarily, in coordination with the Turkish Army months before the start of this operation. So, in addition to the military operation, there is a plan from the Syrian Interim government that was prepared to manage this region the same way, or in a better way than the previous regions that were liberated from PKK and Daesh, Euphrates Shield and Olive Branch. The new administration in our government, they have a plan to manage all the liberated areas, including the Peace Spring region that will be established soon, through electing local councils, through or ministers that will represent the area, and also focusing on the education, health, and other basic services for the region. So all the regions will be managed with one administration, which is the interim government. Regarding the other question, unfortunately, we have heard about the killing of Ms. Khalaf, which is the head of Syria Al-Ghad party. We don't know actually the details of that incident. We are investigating that incident through our communications. We are investigating and verifying what are the reasons that led to this. And there is another point, that she is located in regions that out of the conflict area or the conflict zone in this operation. She was killed on the road to Hasaka. So we don't know. Maybe the other side. Until now, we don't know. It's unknown for us now, the perpetrator. And thank you. Allow me in the beginning to say that we doubt the narrative that says from the media of our enemy. We can't take this accusation based on the media of the enemy. Who says that Ms. Khalaf was killed by the SNA is the enemy said that, and we can't depend on the media of our enemy. And as Mr. Hassan said, she was killed out of the conflict zone, and she was killed out of the region of the opposition forces. So we are doubting the original story, and we need to verify and investigate the story by a third party. And you can't put the blame only on the SNA as what terror groups are saying are facts. These terror groups, they used to do the bloodshed, and they used to kill innocent people with car bombs. And every day we have car bombs that are targeting civilians in Euphrates Shield and Afrin, who are killing civilians. It's easy to fabricate these stories. Actually, these groups are living on the Kurdish cause, and they are claiming or fabricating these stories in order to make the young Kurdish people to be in their side. So as I told you, I doubt this story, and based on the orders by the defense minister, we have created an investigation committee to follow up all the violations that are committed in the region. Another from our brother from TRT Haber. I tell you here that the SNA is not interested in creating the shape of the future of Syria. The SNA is interested in liberating the Syrian soil from terror groups and protecting our country and the borders of the Syria, and also the will of the Syrian people. But other questions can be answered in the coming constitution. The SNA is, regarding the future, is protecting only the will and the respect of the constitution. The SNA will not write that constitution and cannot decide the shape of ruling in Syria, or to give rights to that group or this group. The SNA again is interested in protecting the will of the Syrian people. أي أسئلة أخرى؟ اسمي رجب.
National Relations. I will ask a question to Mr. Yusuf Hamud. As you know, Turkish government has been pressured by Iran and Russia, and as well as the Turkish opposition, to coordinate with the Syrian regime. If that happens, if the Turkish government coordinates with the regime, what will be your response, and what will be the position of the Syrian National Army? Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you very much. Nicholas Cooper from the Australian Embassy. I was wondering If you could please talk a little bit about the command and control structures within the Syrian National Army, including the level of control and command that the Turkish military has, and your oversight of actions of the various factions within the Syrian National Army. And then a second question that was asked a little bit earlier but wasn't completely answered was just about the next phases of the operation. So perhaps the phase 1 so far, but what will take place, what's the approach to Manbij, and what's next?
Okay, thank you.
Dilara Aslan from Daily Sabah. What do you think about the functionality of Turkey's plan to resettle 1 to 2 million Syrians and construct infrastructure for them? Thank you.
Thank you. And the last one?
I will make an addition to my question. For me, I think to broaden your base, militarily winning the war against terrorism, not too difficult for SNA with the support of Turkey. But winning the war against terror groups, not militarily, but as a soft power, to broaden your base, to win their base in the society, you should give some assurances to Kurds, to Alawites, to conservative Sunni Muslims. So because their base, not military power, but their base, if you want to raise their base in the society, I think you should have a plan for assurances, cultural assurances, identity assurances to Kurds and all other minorities.
Okay.
You should have an accurate plan for that.
Thank you. Yes. We start with you.
Regarding the question, in order to win the war, we need to widen the base for the SNA to use the soft power. You have mentioned that in our maps and in our battles, we didn't use the excessive force against the PKK in our battles. We and the Turkish ally, we have used the minimum amount of force in our battles. Even in Afrin operation, the PKK leadership made rumors among the locals in villages and cities, and under their pressure, they were displaced from their villages, the local people. After we started liberating these villages, and I personally, I secured 7 villages after calling the locals in that area, and I asked them to stay, and they stayed actually in these regions or their villages. So after communicating between so those who stayed in their villages, they have communicated with those who were displaced. They have returned in peace to their villages. After the liberation of Afrin region, most of the Kurdish people, they have left the city of Afrin. They went to nearby camps, IDP camps in Aleppo and other regions. Through communicating with the Kurdish people, and this is a fact actually that are mentioned in many reports, after communicating with these Kurdish people, more than 60% of our Kurdish brothers, they have returned to Afrin city. So nothing, not everything that is mentioned in the media is correct. The media is against us. We have fought the regime, we have fought against the Daesh and against the YPG or terror groups. We are against the terror in Syria. So there is a huge media campaign against us. So the media of the YPG, the media of the Daesh, and the media of the regime are against us. All of them are fighting us. So we are fought against in this region. But until this moment, we are sticking to the soft power policy in order to achieve our goals in this region. Regarding the Kurdish brothers return to Afrin, we have facilitated this. No one asked the question to PKK leaders why the Kurdish people returned from Aleppo to Afrin. Who made the checkpoints that prevented the Kurdish people to return from Aleppo to Afrin? Who hindered and stopped them from the return? This question should be asked to the PKK YPG leaders. Even in liberation, we have used the soft power. And the civilian killing, you can say that they are mentionless. And and we have taken these lessons and we are applying them in East Euphrates in Operation Peace Spring, and we are using the soft power policy in our fighting. And we have sent assurances, messages to all of our people, the Syrians, the Kurdish people, and we have told them the coexistence, and we have told them that we will liberate this region, to support the local councils and to support the judiciary, to support the police in order to manage the civil life for all the ethnicities in that region. Regarding the question about the return of refugees to the eastern region, we have heard in media outlets that about the return or the possibility of the return of 1 million to 2 million refugees back to Syria. What happened is that this region, it was displaced, the people of this region were displaced by the regime, and then Daesh, and then the PKK. So it was in different phases of displacement. So the indigenous people, the people of that region, they were displaced and they will return. So there will be no demographic change for that region, and there will be no first return to the other people to that region. So the people of that region, they will return to their villages and homes. Regarding the assurances, Mr. Salim Idris tried in a message he sent to the different communities or minorities that we have in Eastern Euphrates, the Syrian minorities, including the Kurdish community. He has sent a voice message that was broadcasted on air. It was targeted to the SNA to not harm and to follow the rules and instructions that were given to the SNA fighters, and to protect the civilians and their properties. At the same time, assurances to all the Syrian individuals who are living in that region that will be liberated. For sure that there will be a plan. Now, this message was an urgent solution, but for sure there will be a plan to communicate the local people in that region. Now, talking about the Kurdish community, 15% of the Kurdish community, they are sympathizers of the PKK, while the 80% of them, they are Syrians. They are with a national project. So the PKK managed to attract nearly 15 to 20% of the Kurdish community, while to other people, other Kurds, they are national Kurds and they have their own rights, full rights, and we support them. And also, actually, we are communicating with some figures who are in the coalition. We are communicating with the figures of the Association of Independent Kurdish People. We are all in contact with them 24/7, and they have asked us the same thing that you have mentioned, and we are working on these assurances. Thank you very much. I didn't understand what do you mean by assurances. How we give assurances, and we are moving in response to the demands and the calls of our Syrian people. The SNA in its operations is moving based on the call of the people who are living in that region, because of the terror groups that were following their children to take them to compulsory military service and to push them to be killed. In these regions, they have the young people had two options. Either you should go to kill, or you would be killed. And that's why the SNA fighters moved in response to the calls of the people in northern Syria. We won't accept to describe northern Syria as if we are moving as we are an alien group to the Syrian people. If we talk about the Kurdish community, it's part of the Syrian people, and they are part of the Syrian people. So I think, for our friends, our journalist friends, to study very well the reality about the statistics of these regions. The Kurdish community is not a majority in eastern Syria. The majority of northeastern Syria are the Arab community. And here we are not talking about the majorities or minorities, but I just wanted to draw your attention to this. I just want to affirm this, that the SNA moved in order to respond to the calls of our peoples, whether they are Kurds or Arabs and other communities. The other thing is that about the return of refugees. I think the media changed the words of President Erdogan. President Erdogan didn't say that he would send the Syrians back to that region. He said that we will build the infrastructure in that region so the Syrians can return back voluntarily. I am Mustafa Shazijari and I was displaced from Latakia. If I want to go to live in Raqqa, what is the problem with that? I am a Syrian. So we are talking about a voluntarily return of Syrians back to Syria. Yes, we don't want to stay in Turkey. We don't want to stay in Europe. We want to get back to our country, to our homeland, away from terror groups. The SNA is the protector of the Syrian people will, and which is the guarantor of the peace in Syria. Here we are not talking about demographic change in northern Syria. We are talking about the rights of Syrians to return to Syria, and let the international community help us to get rid of Assad regime from Tartus, Latakia and other cities. So they won't return only to northern Syria, but to all of Syria. So thank you for Turkey for helping us to create a safe zone, so to help a small portion of Syrians to return voluntarily to Syria. We have suffered from terrorism. We have suffered from Daesh. We have suffered from the terrorism of YPG. We suffer from terror groups. We suffer from Assad regime. We suffer from the Iranian presence. And our stance against Iran is it's an occupation force inside Syria, which is supporting Assad regime in killing. Without, if Iran wasn't there, Assad won't be there. And we didn't reach this stage. So our stance against Iran is an occupying force. But because of the regional international conditions, we respect the agreements between Turkey and Iran in order to grease the injustice that is applied on the Syrian people. And here we have, it's a call. Help us to get rid of Assad regime. Who is keen about stability in Syria, he should help us to get rid of the Assad regime. And now the international community is not serious about that, and the international community is not serious in the fight against terror groups. I have been fighting Daesh since 2013. There is no credibility from the international community in fighting Daesh. For 1.5 years, I have moving and roaming around the world to fight HTS or Hayat Tahrir al-Sham in Idlib. They are using the terror groups in order to pass their foreign agendas and projects in our region. They are supporting these terror groups in order to kill the Syrian people. Is there any international force that provided support to get rid of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham in Idlib? Is there anyone supported support for us to fight Daesh? Here we talk about Iran presence in Syria, but unfortunately they are supporting Iran, and at the same time they say that we are against Iran. Unfortunately, the media is not telling that the reality in Syria is different. There are many agendas, and there are many regional agendas that are played in Syria, and the international community kept Assad until now, and they are keeping Assad inside Syria until this moment, and they allowed or opened the door for Russia to kill the Syrian people, and they didn't want us to fight PKK. So we are not fighting Syrians in northern Syria. This is a reality. This is a fact. We are not fighting Kurdish people. Come to the SNA fighters. Most of them are Kurdish people. Come to Urfa. Come to Mardin, to Akçakala. I've met with hundreds of people who are from that region. They are waiting for the moment to their return to their region. The PKK, before fighting Arabs, they fought against Kurdish people. We need to understand this fact. You can ask the Kurdish people who are inside Syria and inside Turkey and now living in Germany.
Urgent questions. Okay, I'm going to take 2 more questions. Okay.
I've asked
about Manbij and تقدمت بسؤال لحضرتكم أستاذ يوسف عن موضوع منبج وأن هناك تقارير تقول أو في عبر وسائل الإعلام يتم الحديث عن أن النظام يحشد على مشارف منطقة منبج. هل هناك حديث عن دخولكم إلى منبج؟ ما الذي سيحدث هناك؟ هل هناك حديث عن مواجهة مع قوات الأسد؟ وأيضا هل هناك حديث عن إذا ما كان الأسد يتعامل مع الPKK الإرهابي؟ I repeat the question in English so that not be lost. I ask about Manbij. So we heard from some media reports saying that Assad regime is gathering some forces in Manbij. So what's going to happen in Manbij?
Thank you.
And is the Assad regime contributing with the PKK?
Okay.
I think my question has yet to be answered.
It was also about Manbij, right?
No, it was about the possible Turkish approachment with Syria. What would be their response?
Microphone. Okay. And very quick.
Okay, I'm repeating my question. What will be your response if Turkish government engages in diplomacy with the Syrian regime?
Okay. Thank you. Okay, two questions.
اوكي.
سؤالين. Regarding question, it's not well phrased. You are talking about the relationship if there is an agreement between the PKK and the Assad regime. We have mentioned about this, that the PKK is part or made up, or the regime supervised its creation in order to end the revolution that was happening in eastern Syria. And it appeared in the killing of Mashal Tummo and explosions in Qamishli. So at that time, all the national members or components from the Kurdish community, they were expelled outside of Syria. And we used to have Kurdish brigades that were fighting with us. So the PKK entered that region and controlled the region. So there is a deep and a strong relation between PKK, Iran, and the regime. And we have told you that all the leaders that we have in Syria, all of them, they are leaders, came from Qandil and from Turkey and from Iraq. So they don't have an agreement, but they have a relationship. So there might be an agreement between Turkish and Russian counterparts. Trump issue the withdrawal from the eastern Syria. So the Syrian Kurds who are inside the same vehicle with the PKK, they look for another operator that might help them. They felt like their original operator, which was the American, might get rid of them. So they were looking for another operator. So we have seen them. Some of them were moving. Some of these YPG leaders, they were talking with Russia, and some of them were talking for Assad because they don't have a project, and they don't have a project. They are just moving or supporting terror leaders, PKK leaders who are interested in drug trade, in antiques trade. They don't have a national project, and they are really rich now. So all of their actions, they are reflected on the Syrian Kurdish community. So 3 days ago there was a meeting between Ilham Darrar, which is a leader for Masad and ORSDF, and a brigadier from the regime side. There was a problem. The regime couldn't take a resolution because they are operated by the Iran and Russia, and they cannot take a decision by themselves. And so neither YPG or the regime, they have the ability to take a decision or to take the initiative. So the decisions are taken in Russia, in Iran, and also in Kandil Mountains. We have seen this in Afrin, and this will be applied, I think, in Manbij, as you have seen the flags and some fighters are entering the city. So this is a policy of flying in order to reshuffle the papers and files in that region. So the regime couldn't make it to Afrin, and our fighters now are close to Manbij, and we are ready in the coming few days to open the access of Manbij.
I'd like to thank you for your question, though it's a theoretical one, in fact. I'll give you an example. Iran is an enemy of the Syrian revolution and the Syrian people, whereas Turkey has good relations with Iran. This is something that is purely Turkish. We respect the Turkish sovereignty and we respect the Turkish decisions. This is my comment. Thank you. My understanding of your question is about the position of the opposition, if there is an alignment between Turkey and the Syrian regime. And I believe that Turkey is wise enough not to have such a relation with a criminal regime or a terrorist regime who supported the terrorist groups in Syria. It's the Syrian regime who is supporting Miraj. The cause is actually the Syrian regime. The regime is the one who fabricated the attacks in several areas which led to a large number of victims. Turkey is aware that it should, or Turkey is actually having a relationship with the actual forces that represent the interests and the voices of the Syrian people. What you are suggesting is not realistic and I don't expect it to happen. إذن شكرا لكم على مجيئكم وأشكركم وأشكر الحضور أيضا على مجيئهم لهذه الجلسة. رجاء أن تتابعونا لتعرفوا مستجدات هذه العملية في سوريا. شكرا لمجيئكم.